Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unwanted Opinions podcast. Jay and I are back here on a Wednesday afternoon, sort of evening. I guess it's about 5 o'clock, right before the Raptors and Celtics tip off in about an hour. And you got the Nuggets and the Clippers tipping off, what is that, 9, Jay? I think it is.
Believe so.
Got those two games tonight. We'll run down all 4 series of these playoffs so far. Miami just finished off the Giannis-less Bucks. That's kind of hard to say. Giannis-less. So we'll preview that. You got the NFL starting tomorrow, and it doesn't even seem like that. So Jay and I are going to talk a little bit about just NFL, just kind of briefly run over some stuff. I mean, because we get to talk some football, and we haven't been able to talk football for a while, and it doesn't even seem real to me yet. I don't think it's going to seem real until tomorrow night.
I'm sitting down in front of the TV watching the game.
So exactly, but we'll discuss all that. Jay, how are you today, man? It's a Wednesday, hump day. We had Monday off, so this week's
short week,
sort of flying by
tomorrow,
already.
Like you said, yeah. It's been a pretty good week for me. Not as many headaches as usual. I think we're starting to slow down a little bit at work, so that's always nice to be able to get caught back up.
Yeah, that is true.
I've been feeling good all week.
Good, that's good, man. Yeah, same. As you know, we're trying to pack up and prepare for a baby. So
yeah, prepare for a baby and to move.
Yeah, so we got a lot of shit going on. Every weekend we kind of got some stuff to do. So, but it's all excitement for the good. So we're pumped. But all right, where do you actually? I know where I want to start. Let's start with, I guess, the series that's over with the Milwaukee and Miami. So as I said, the Giannis-less Bucks fell to the Heat. Well, actually, I won't say Giannis-less. I mean, he played 3 and a quarter of those games, but they fell.
They went down 3-0.
They fell in 5. Him. Yeah, exactly. They went down 3 games to nothing with Giannis playing in every single one of those games. A lot of them, I mean, they were tough-fought games. Jay and I really liked Miami, this team coming into the playoffs. We really liked this matchup against the Bucks. I think we were both kind of on it from the beginning, where we just didn't think Milwaukee was going to make the finals after just everyone all season long. You just talked about how great this team was, what a juggernaut they were offensively and defensively. Giannis is the best player in the world. He's going to win back-to-back MVPs.
Defensive Player of the Year.
There's 2 All-Stars on their team. They had 3 guys make the All-Defensive team. All-NBA teams haven't come out. There's probably going to be himself and Chris Middleton on that. So, I mean, maybe in Coach of the Year or last year or 2 years ago. I mean, so this team had absolutely no excuses to lose in the second round. And now, where do you go if you're Milwaukee? Because last night it was reported that Giannis said he's not going to request a trade. He came out and said something about how he wants to run through the wall instead of like around the wall, or he used some sort of analogy like that, where he basically is saying, and he's saying all the right things obviously right now, but he's basically saying, like, when the going gets tough, I'm not going to run away. Charles Barkley said last night he hopes that Giannis doesn't become a chump and leave to go join a super team. Charles Barkley's been like the biggest hypocrite of any superstar or any player going somewhere else instead of just being on the same exact team. But Jay, I wanted to ask you, we talked about how the loss of Malcolm Brogdon would be so key, and you saw that so much in this series, because in the first round, Brogdon against this same Miami Heat team averaged like 22 and 10. And Eric Bledsoe, the guy they chose to pay over Malcolm Brogdon, averaged like 12 points on like 28% shooting from 3. He was just really bad. They weren't respecting his job. They were just letting him shoot. I mean, they had their opportunity to keep Malcolm Brogdon and chose just to let him walk for basically nothing. I mean, they're going to get like the 24th pick in this year's draft, which is an awful draft. So they were a little cheap on trying to maximize a guy who's 25 years old in Giannis, and right now, because he's not making $40 million a year, was a time to really load up on other guys and try and win. But what do you do if you're Milwaukee? Do you just run it back? Because they tried that this year, and it obviously didn't work.
The problem is nobody's going to want to go to Milwaukee, I don't believe. And like you said, they had a chance to try and do everything they could to retain Brogdon and let him go for virtually nothing. So you had a guy that you could have locked up to keep there and let probably not going to get any come to a big time to come to Milwaukee. This free agent class, I think we talked about it a couple pods ago, isn't that great. It's the next season's free agency class that's the big one. So if I'm Milwaukee, I think that really the only thing you can do is try and bring in just a couple more depth pieces and run it back and see maybe Giannis takes another step forward next year, because you saw this year he developed his three-pointer was better than it was last year. He was a better player this year than he was last year. Maybe you're hoping that he takes another step forward and just becomes flat out dominant and is willing and able to take that team. I shouldn't say willing because he's willing. It's just able to take basically a two-man show all the way to the finals. But after seeing 2 years in a row virtually the same thing happen, where they're a regular season juggernaut and then they get to the playoffs and a team does basically the same exact thing to stop you. Toronto last year, Miami this year. Build a wall, go under screens, make Giannis shoot from three, do not let him in the paint and make other people beat you. It's worked 2 years in a row, and I don't know why it wouldn't work next year either with the team they have. But what other options do you have other than to try it again?
I mean, I think you also have an opportunity where you can obviously you can try and get better. There's no way they're going to be able to get anybody free agent wise, because I think they're right. I think they're above the cap, but they're not into the luxury tax. And also, I mean, with the whole COVID and revenue losses, I mean, the cap's not going to jump. I mean, if anything, it's going to stay the same or decrease. I mean, so you're not going to have much opportunity to go try and get it. I mean, Anthony Davis is the big name in free agency this year, but I mean, I highly doubt that he leaves LA. But I mean, a guy like Chris Paul, that name's been floated out a lot the past couple days. Chris Paul for like Eric Bledsoe and some other shit, because OKC just announced that they're going to them and Billy Donovan agreed to mutually part ways. So I mean, do you just full on rebuild? If you're Milwaukee, you say, hey, we have to match salary, so give us Eric Bledsoe and like Dante DiVincenzo and a couple picks, and you can have Chris Paul. I don't know. Or, I don't know, you call Washington.
I don't know. Do you think that makes the team worse?
No, I think absolutely makes the team better. I mean, you see what Chris Paul did with this Thunder team. I mean, if you pair him with Giannis, because he's actually a guy, because Bledsoe, he's a guy that just wants to go. He's a worse version of Russell Westbrook, where he really only has one speed. He's not a great three-point shooter. Chris Paul is a guy who can play with a lot of tempo, and he can control the offense, which is something they really missed with Malcolm Brogdon, because Brogdon is that he's not as good as Chris Paul, but he's not just out of control all the time, and he's a very smart player like Chris Paul is. I'm just not a huge fan of Eric Bledsoe, period. I just think he's a very good defender because he's thick, he's got long arms, and also Milwaukee's in a very good defensive system where he thrives in it. But he, like I mentioned, offensively, he's like just gets tunnel vision, and he thinks he can go 1-on-5, and it just isn't that way. But I do absolutely think Chris Paul makes them better. But that even gives them a shorter window because Chris Paul's 35 and not getting any younger. And, I mean, it's possible that he may just had the best, I don't know, maybe his last good season. That's another possibility. But I just really don't think you can run it back, because that's where teams get into trouble, is where they don't, especially because they got bounced in a earlier round than they did last year. I mean, and the East is only going to continue to get better. I mean, I don't think it's getting any worse. I mean, you got KD and Kyrie coming back for Brooklyn next year. That's depending on what KD looks like. I mean, that should be the favorite in the Eastern Conference, regardless if Giannis is on your roster or not, because you pair KD and Kyrie together. So I just don't think you can run it back. It's just, again, and they can't like try in any desperation trades. I don't know. I mean, I think you call around for Bradley Beal, see what Washington, CJ McCollum, Portland. I mean, because a guy who just another person who can create their offense by themselves and is actually a capable shooter. And also,
yeah,
I
because
think
I wanted to ask you, do you think the team looked, and I'm not trying to say that Milwaukee is a better team without Giannis. That's foolish. That's stupid. They would not be where they are today if they didn't have Giannis on the team. But to me, it did look like in spurts the team played better and looked better with Giannis off the court because they were able to move around more. The ball flowed more freely where they didn't really have to force it to Giannis. I mean, it gave shots to other guys. I thought the ball rotation was a little bit better. I don't want to say they're better without Giannis because I don't believe that to be true, but just from the small sample size of the past 2 games, do you think they look like they were able to play better without him?
as you mentioned, the ball just moves a lot more when Giannis isn't there because, I mean, like 70% of the Bucks offense is just Giannis going full steam to the rim and kicking out to open shooters or drawing fouls or finishing at the rim. I mean, that's a lot of what they like to do. And I mean, he's great at it. He may be the best person in the league right now currently doing it, but when you also have 4 other guys who aren't knocking down shots, when you're trying to do that, your team becomes extremely easy to beat, as we saw with Toronto, as we saw with Miami this round. So, and that also, I think, comes to coaching with Coach Bud, because he is a person who is kind of getting left in the background, where he's not getting a lot of the blame. A lot of the blame is being shadowed onto Giannis specifically because he's going to be the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, and he's getting knocked out in round 2. But Coach Bud has had playoff failures dating back to Atlanta when he also had a 60-win regular season team and they got swept in the conference finals by LeBron and the Cavs without Kyrie Irving, and which a lot of people seem to forget that Kyrie Irving didn't play a lot of that series. And then now, last year, he lost 4 straight, got out-coached by Nick Nurse. This year, he got out-coached by Eric Spoelstra in round 2, and they lost in 5. So I think I saw yesterday that the Bucks, against their playoff opponents in the last 9 games not named Orlando, they're 1-8 versus those 2 teams, which would be Toronto and Miami. So I don't know if you look for a coaching change. I think that's hard to do. But look what Toronto did. Toronto fired the coach of the year, and Dwayne Casey brought in Nick Nurse, and then they go win the title.
Yeah, that was a ballsy move because
exactly.
I think we both came on there,
and it was very unpopular at the time.
Yeah, it was, and it was clearly the right move.
Exactly. So those are just, and you just gotta, you can't think like that sometimes with emotion. You got to think with, look, we got to win. Like, I like you, but you're just not getting the job done flat out.
What do you think about the possibility of D'Antoni going there? I hear that.
That's not terrible.
I'm just wondering about the fit with Giannis because he's a fucking 3-point shooting machine. D'Antoni is with his system, and that's not Giannis's game. But then again, I do feel like someone like Giannis, as long as they surround him with 3-point shooters, could very well work that team like D'Antoni's never had before. And I'm saying this all because of the reports that Houston wants D'Antoni back, but D'Antoni's not quite sure if he wants to come back just yet. He's kind of being more reserved in what he's saying and going to play it out and see if he wants to re-sign at the end of the year. I don't know if that's true, but that's everything that I'm hearing.
Yeah, and I just we'll get to that series in a minute, but I think if they lose, I think there's going to be a lot of shakeups in Houston, and
I do too.
And D'Antoni's probably going to be one of the guys to go, and maybe Daryl Morey. But and a lot of people are trying to make this seem like it was 2009 or 10 with the Cavs and LeBron, and it's very similar because of the way they've got knocked out in the playoffs the past couple years because of LeBron and their play style. It was very similar, although LeBron was a better shooter. And that's where I mentioned you can't just continue to try and run it back and stay the same because it just hasn't worked. And other teams get better, and if you stay the same, you get worse. So I just think there's going to have to be some changes if they want to keep Giannis, because that's a big decision for him too. I mean, he's saying all the right stuff now, but if they lose again next year or not even make the finals, what's the reason for him to even stay if they keep just getting flamed out and they just put the same exact roster around it? Because that was one of the main reasons LeBron left in Cleveland, is because the front office put the worst fucking supporting cast around him, and he's like, look, man, get me at least a second all-star and we can maybe do something. But if you're just putting 39-year-old Shaq and Antoine Jameson around me and Ben Wallace, who's been injured for like the past 6 years, and you try and bring him in, like, what are you doing to me? So I believe that Milwaukee's front office is a little better than what Cleveland's was, but
their roster's better too,
and that's true too. It also comes down to Giannis. He just needs to get better. I mean, he just flat out needs to become a better jump shooter. He does. I mean, there's no excuse for him not to be a good jump shooter.
So he's working on that. So I do give him props on that. I mean, he can't just turn around and be a 40% from three overnight kind of guy. But his jumper is coming along, but it's nowhere near what it needs to be. But I do like the comparison to Cleveland. I will say Milwaukee's a little further along than Cleveland was with surrounding talent. But
because Chris Middleton and Bledsoe and Lopez are better than basically anybody that LeBron ever played with his first time around in Cleveland.
For sure. And I would say they definitely should look at that Cleveland team and why LeBron left and try and do something about it. I just don't know what all their options are. And like you said, they can't really stay the same because I guarantee you today, if the odds for next year come out with a healthy Kevin Durant, without him even playing a minute on the court, Milwaukee will be less of a favorite to win the East than Brooklyn right off the jump.
No doubt about it.
If they don't lose anyone over the offseason, Milwaukee that is, they're automatically going to be worse than Brooklyn in the eyes of Vegas and what everybody perceives is going to happen next season. So just with that alone, you have to do something to get better. I just don't know what they can do. You kind of said they're kind of strapped for cash. No one is just going to voluntarily go to Milwaukee.
It's got to be a trade. It has to be a trade or a coaching change or both.
I do like the idea of the Chris Paul thing. If he'd be willing to go there, I think him and Giannis would actually work pretty well together because, yes, Chris Paul wants the ball in his hand. He'll tell you exactly what he's thinking, but I don't think Giannis looks at himself as I need to be the man. I have to.
And that benefits him.
This is my team. Exactly.
Because he doesn't have to be the primary playmaker 90% of the time. If you get another person who's capable of doing that, that helps so much. You see that with the Lakers right now with LeBron and Rondo. Let's just jump to that series. I mean, just quick thoughts on Miami. We really didn't talk about them. I mean, I just really like this team. It's going to be a lot of the same stuff that you and I have been talking about the past couple of weeks, Jay. I really just, all of them are just dogs. Like, they all just are there to play. There's no drama. There's nothing. They just want to hoop, and they play together. They're very well coached. Everyone knows their role. So I really like this Miami team, and they have an absolutely really good shot at making the finals next round, and whether it's Boston or Toronto.
I agree, because I'm never the one that's going to be afraid to say I was wrong. I change my opinions when I see new information. I'd rather be the guy that corrected himself and is right going forward rather than the guy who just wants to stick to his original opinion and just try and be proven right, if that makes sense. So
it does.
Before round two, Toronto looked fucking incredible. I thought Toronto looked better than when they did with Kawhi last year. And I thought, I'm taking this team to the NBA Finals. I thought they were going to lose to whichever Western team made it, but I was taking Toronto through the East. And after seeing them against Boston, they've kind of come back to earth a little bit. You can tell they're more evenly matched with Boston. They might not even make it past Boston, but looking ahead, Miami to me looks like the best team in the East right now. So
the way they're playing, yes, and like you said, yeah, information can change based off of multiple factors. And I mean, what Miami was able to do to the number one team in the Eastern Conference, really everyone thought the league was just incredible.
Butler has them playing with a mindset that I did not see coming. I mean, he even came out and said, I'm not bringing family to the bubble. This is a business trip. I'm here to win the championship.
Straight up savage for that.
And it's looks exactly like what they're actually doing on the court.
Because I think he just had a baby in the beginning of the season, so he's got a brand new kid.
Yeah, and to point Miami in the direction of Toronto or Boston, whoever wins that series, I do think it'd be a tougher matchup for Miami if they draw the Celtics, because I think the Celtics are way more versatile offensively and would kind of give them more of a matchup problem. But if they draw the Raptors, I think Miami wins that series, maybe in 6 games. I think that's how good they are, because I believe they'll be able to shut down Pascal Siakam and defend that perimeter. And I just think they're going to kind of shut down Toronto better than Boston is right now. So to me, if you're a Miami fan, I'd be pulling to play Toronto. I don't know who's going to come out of that series yet. I think I'm going to stick to my guns and pick the Raptors to win that series still, because in Game 2 they allowed them that Boston just fucked up and allowed them that, or was it Game 3?
It was Game 3 when they had half of a second.
Yeah,
and Anunoby hit that 3, which is honestly just was an incredible pass by Kyle Lowry over 7'5" Taco Fall. He said he said he was 7'12" in the interview after the game. Yeah. Well, so let's just run over that. I said let's go to the Lakers and the Rockets, but let's just go east for right now too, okay, since you were talking about Boston and Toronto. And originally I picked Toronto in this series in 6 as well. And after the first 2 games, it looked really bad because they shot 11 for 40 from 3 and 10 for 40 in threes in Game 1 and 2, and you just can't win like that. And then they got a little life in Game 3 because they played really well in Game 3. It's just at the end, I think they were like 1 for 11 from 3 in the fourth quarter of that game and still came out and won based off that shot. Game 4, Boston just looked like a team who kind of just had the wind knocked out of their sails. And I think and that makes sense because they're a younger team. They had just lost on half of a second on of a defensive breakdown. So you kind of think there was a letdown game happening. But the thing with Toronto is they're playing these guys like 40 to 46 minutes. Like Kyle Lowry and Van Vliet are averaging like 43 minutes this series because when those guys aren't on the court, they really just can't score because Pascal Siakam is just getting his lunch eaten by Jaylen Brown almost every single possession. I'm not sure why Toronto keeps thinking they can post up Pascal because it just hasn't worked against Jaylen Brown, and Pascal just hasn't found a shot. And Nick Nurse kind of called him out.
Bode well for the next series because they're just each series they're going to be more and more fatigued, and Miami's not the team you want to be fatigued around because they move off of the ball so much. They're constantly running. They use their depth. They run with the fucking Siri's over here trying to talk to me, so I don't know if she thought I just said, "Hey Siri," but
fucking
they run
technology,
around
man.
Then defensively, they're all over the place, so they're making you move. So that would not be a good matchup for them to go into the next round with, and they're going to have a hard time getting past the Celtics team.
And they look fried in Game 5.
They do.
I mean, they just look gassed. They look exhausted. They really only play 7 guys right now because outside of their 2 bench guys and Powell and Ibaka, they just look bad, and I just think Gasol looks old in this series. It's really not a series that bodes well for him. Boston's just younger and fresher, and the only thing I worry about Boston still is the loss of Gordon Hayward because they're getting by right now because of Toronto's struggles, but Miami hasn't had those struggles in the first round, and it's arguably against a better defensive team in Milwaukee rather than Boston. So, I mean, they really only have like 5 guys. They rely so much on their 5 guys too. It's just they're better. They've just been better at shoot. Really, just 3-point shooting has been like the telltale sign of this series. Whoever shoots better from 3 just flat out wins the game. That's what's been the case through Toronto and Boston. So tonight, whoever shoots better from 3 is going to win because that's basically what it's told us. There's been barely any adjustments. It's just flat out, if we shoot better, we're going to win. And that's it.
And I said I'm sticking to my Toronto pick. Are you as well? I know it won't be in 6, but are you going to stick to them, or are you wanting to switch to Boston?
Again,
I couldn't blame you if you did because the way Boston's played them, it doesn't give you much hope that. Toronto's
and that's why it's so hard to make predictions, man. Because if you want to backtrack on it, you seem like you're folding or hedging or. I mean, but I just don't think I can pick Toronto. I think they're gonna lose tonight. I think it's gonna be Boston in 6. Boston has just played a lot better than I thought because I really thought that Gordon Hayward loss was going to affect them a lot more than it really has. And like I said, it's been very beneficial to them that Toronto's just shot the ball like shit because they've had a ton of open shots. Like they could have won games 1 or 2 had they made 3 more shots in each of those games. So
and that's why I'm sticking to my pick, because I'm just thinking that those will start. They can't. Toronto's too good of a team to just let that keep happening.
And that's maybe the case, and it might be because Jason Tatum really hasn't had that great of a series offensively. Defensively, I thought he's been very good, but offensively, he really hasn't got going yet. So, and that's also credit to Toronto's defense. So, it's just whoever's going to hit their shots. That's basically it. I mean, it's not.
That is the name of the game.
It's not that they call it a make or miss league. I mean, it's so fucking true. I mean, because you see every team, I mean, shoots threes or layups. I mean, it's not even the Rockets, really. I mean, it's everybody pretty much. So, all right. Yeah. You got anything else to add on that series?
Nope. I was just about to ask, you want to go Clippers Nuggets or Lakers Rockets?
Let's go Lakers Rockets, because we were gonna go there first. That game was last night. It's a little bit more fresh right now. You saw the return of Playoff Rondo. It's a real fucking thing. And
I tried telling you.
I tweeted this last night. I said, maybe Playoff Rondo legitimately is a real thing, but I'm not apologizing for all the things I said wrong about him, because he was just bad a lot of the times in the regular season. I mean, there was really just, there's no sugarcoating it. He had a lot of terrible games in the regular season, and I know you were saying, just wait, but in that Portland
I was eating
series,
crow a lot because he kept, I mean, he didn't play during Portland.
That first game when the Lakers lost, I came on here and said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Lakers need Rondo. I don't know if you remember me saying that, Jay.
I do.
Okay, but I did, because I was like, look, they just need another ball handler, because
when LeBron's off the court,
yes,
they need someone to run the show.
Yeah, and his defense, Rondo's defense, was awesome. I mean, it was really good, especially on James Harden. He's been the guy.
I feel like so much of defense is want to, and you can just see that Rondo wants it so bad. He wants it just as much as anybody on that team, and he's out to prove himself. And this, like you said, Playoff Rondo is a real thing. That's why I just kept saying, man, just wait for it. There's going to be a game when stuff ain't going right and Rondo just steps up to the plate and comes through. You're going to have games where Rondo misses threes. He's not a fantastic three-point shooter. But what he did last night was damn near incredible, especially in the fourth quarter, the shots he was making, the way he took over the game.
Basically, I think he had an 8-0 run by himself.
Yeah, him coming back and playing this way, they need him to do this, especially against this team, because the loss of Avery Bradley on the defensive end when guarding the point guards and the guards that the Western Conference teams have. I mean, the first round they go up against Dame and CJ, and they don't have Rondo, and that kind of took a toll on some games. And then this round, they're playing the Rockets, who have, Harden and Westbrook. So you need someone to go out there and guard them, and Rondo stepped up to the plate last night, and it was awesome to watch.
He did, and he guarded him a lot in the second half. Rondo did on James Harden. I believe Harden only had 11 points. In the second half, maybe he had 12, but he didn't have he obviously wasn't as effective in the second half as he was in the first, because really in the first half of Game 3, the Lakers played there was absolutely no defense played on either side. The LeBron basically he had 29 points in the first half. He was just hitting tough shot after tough shot. He kept them in that game because their effort just wasn't there. Their rotations were really, really slow, but in the second half, they were really good. I think they only allowed, after giving up 61, would they allow 43 in the second half, I believe it was? Or
38.
38, there you go. I knew it wasn't very much, because they stepped up their intensity defensively. You saw that they were sprinting on their rotations. You saw that at a halftime, Vogel was like, all right, I just can't play JaVale. I just can't do it. I thought they should have stick to their guns, but when a guy who's 7 feet tall is giving you 0 rebounds and 0 points, I mean, there's no room for him out there if he's just going to clog up the lane. Because
it's not like he was playing awesome defense either.
No, he was getting blown by Russell Westbrook, and
he wasn't blocking shots at the rim.
Really, whoever. I mean, he's barely even given a contest at the rim. So this just it's Dwight Howard hasn't played in games 2 and 3, which it's just going to not be a series for those two guys, which they were very important for the Lakers throughout the regular season. And Anthony Davis isn't fond of playing center, but he's really not a center in this round. I mean, it's just basically all positionless. There's just 10 guys out on the court guarding whoever. And so, but
I haven't even looked at it like that, but that is kind of true. You're 1,000% right.
The tallest guy on Houston is 6'7" in Robert Covington, and all he wants to do is shoot threes. So, I mean, you have no post up, and that's I think that's a lot what Anthony Davis doesn't like to do. He does not like to guard post players or guys that are, because he's a much trimmer four, if you will. I mean, in today's league, he's basically a five, but if they were to play Denver, they would have to use Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee a lot. If it was the Sixers with Embiid, or you get my point. It's just those guys who want to play in the post. Anthony Davis doesn't like to do that. But in this game, no one is going to try and post him. And if they are, it's Russell Westbrook, who's 6'3", and Anthony Davis is 6'11". So, and he sucked it up and played. So, and they've looked really good. And to talk about Houston a little bit, I mean, you were talking about D'Antoni already leaving, going to maybe coach Milwaukee or someone else, the Sixers or the Pacers of interest in him. I mean, if the Rockets lose, what else can they try without just saying, well, fuck, maybe this doesn't work. We should just blow the entire thing up. When does it get to a point where Harden's just like, I'm going to request a trade. I want out of here. And maybe I can go to a different team and we run something different where we actually run a legit offense. And we have, I don't know what.
I don't think he wants to run.
I don't know what Houston,
he likes what he does.
What card they have left to play, because they have tried a lot of shit and they have like no assets left.
Nope, no assets. They'd have a brand new front office if this scenario.
Yeah, because there you go. Daryl Morey's probably gone too.
Yeah, and like Westbrook's not getting any younger and he can't shoot. That's not a recipe for success, because each year his athleticism is going to drop. I don't know. I don't have the answer for that. I don't know what
I don't think they do.
If I was in that position, because you tried running it when James Harden was just kind of by himself with a big and Capella and then a bunch of perimeter shooters like Ariza and everybody else around him. Ran into the juggernaut of Golden State. Then you turn around, you give them Chris Paul. You have that two-man crew going. They can both shoot. They can both handle the ball. They can both run the show. They can both kind of do similar things. That didn't work. Then you shift Chris Paul out.
I do think that would have worked had Chris Paul not torn his hamstring. So to give them that bit of credit, that would have worked, because they maybe would have won the championship that year against Cleveland, but keep going.
Well, to kind of go back to the Milwaukee thing where we said they would automatically be underdogs to Brooklyn when they come back, next year they're still going to be underdogs to the Lakers, even if all things stayed the same. They're still going to be underdogs to the Clippers, and Golden State gets Steph and Clay back.
And they've got the number 2 pick. They've got a top 3 protected pick from Minnesota. So, I mean, there's really good assets right there to try and go get another whoever. I mean, I doubt that they have that number 2 pick and play with a rookie next year, because they're still trying to win titles. So
I think Houston's done. I really do. If they don't win the chip this year, I think
that was their last card.
What other card do you have? Like I said, next year you're going to be the 4th team at best when Golden State comes back. Then, I mean, there's no guarantee you're better than
That's saying if Denver doesn't improve,
exactly.
If Utah doesn't improve, I mean, Utah's going to get Bogdanovich back. Dallas with Luka and Porzingis and whatever they do.
So, I don't know. I mean, the problem is, like you said, you don't have assets to just rebuild. What the fuck do you do?
No, because they gave up a bunch of picks. They gave up 2 picks in this Chris Paul trade for Russell Westbrook. And did they legitimately upgrade?
I don't know. I mean, I cannot hate on the front office for what they've done, because they've been aggressive. They've done things to try and win championships.
And they were the only team that just didn't say, fuck these couple years when Golden State had KD, Clay, Draymond, Steph.
Kept coming.
They were the only team in basketball that just said, we're going to still try and compete. And they did. They were the team that competed the most with one of the arguably the greatest team of all time. And I will give them credit to my grave about doing that, because there was so many, all 28 other teams were just like, nope, we can't win. They're too good. We're not even going to try. And Houston tried. And Houston was an injury away. And honestly, they still could have won if they had hit, maybe they missed 27 straight threes. If they missed 24 straight and hit 3 of them, they win that series. So, but they gave up too early on the Chris Paul thing because him and James Harden didn't get along. James Harden didn't get along with Dwight Howard. James Harden didn't get along with Kevin McHale. At some point, James Harden also has to look himself in the mirror and say, hey, look, maybe I need to change some things that I'm doing. I'm a fantastic isolation player, and he does make people better, but I just, and I texted you this, I hate watching them play basketball. I just absolutely hate it to my core. I can't stand
annoying.
it.
I mean, James Harden takes a three with no one within 12 feet of him, and the guy looks at him wrong, and he falls down after his three, and they're blowing a whistle for a foul.
Like he jumped 3 feet into Kyle Kuzma last night and got a foul call in the first quarter. I'm just like, that's not a foul. That's not basketball.
I mean, he shot a three, fell down before the guy even made it there to defend him, and they blew the whistle. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me.
It's gimmicky. It's manipulation. It's just. I don't know. There's just because we both picked the Lakers to win this series. We both think the Lakers are going to win the title, so obviously they're going to get through Houston. But is this just going to turn into another team that LeBron beats and is going to turn into a not a very good team? They weren't that good. They were the 4 seed. Yada yada yada. Then they have to blow up.
Portland. He beats Portland, and everybody's calling for a rebuild, and they got to do something different and all this stuff, blow up the team. And we both believe that if LA beats the Rockets, they're going to blow everything up. And no one wants to run, fucking everybody down to it. He's a way to beat a team in front of them.
Yeah, good luck. With the performances that they've gotten from LeBron and AD in these past couple games, honestly, just to any team, good luck at trying to beat these guys if they're scoring 60 to 70 points a night. Just combine the two of them, because then you just have to filter 30 to 40 points between 5 other guys, which on some nights it's going to be Kuzma. On some nights it's going to be Rondo. It's going to be Danny Green or KCP are going to hit 3 or 4 threes. They don't.
We haven't even seen shit from J.R. Smith.
They don't have a third guy necessarily, but they have 4 to 5 guys that are capable of going off like that. Markieff Morris had 14 points in the first quarter of Game 2. He was the reason why they really won that game, because of the lead that they were able to stretch in the first half, because he shot so well in the first quarter. So if you get performances like that once or twice a series, and then LeBron and AD are going off for 65 to 70 points, that's just going to be a really hard team to beat.
Yep, that's why we picked them from the beginning.
Yeah. They're the best duo in the league, and they're so good defensively when they lock in, because in the second half, they were crisp. Yeah, the Rockets missed some open shots, and they were missing Daniel House, which was honestly, I didn't even realize he was gone until the second half. I was like, oh shit, he hasn't been in. But he was gone for a personal matter or whatever, and then Covington got elbowed in the face, but they said he's going to play Game 4. But, I think everybody just loved, and everyone was freaking out after Game 1 when they lost. And it happens every single series.
I don't think enough is being talked about the Lakers' defense. 1, they lost Avery Bradley, and 2, Houston is, if not the best or the highest scoring team in the league, they're right up there at the top. And through 3 games, they've 112 is the most points they've scored, which is a win for LA.
Agreed. And I know a lot of people talked about the Avery Bradley loss. Yeah, and he's a really good defender, but the Lakers guards are good defensively. Danny Green he's been an all defensive guy before in his career. He learned how to play defense in San Antonio. Also, KCP is active. Caruso is a very good defender. You're seeing Rondo, who's actually buying into defense, because you talked about it. It's a lot about wanting to play defense, and they're showing that they want to play. They love to compete defensively. And Kuzma, after a really bad Game 1 defensively, he's actually stepped up and played really well defensively in Game 2 and 3. So, and then AD's just, AD and LeBron is another guy who's just now, he's just buying into the defensive end. He had 4 blocks last night. He just has, in these past couple games, he has some of the best blocks I've ever seen in his career, and that's saying a lot from a guy who basically invented the chase down block.
Yep.
He is just bullying Russell Westbrook when he goes to the rim. He swatted Westbrook like 5 times in this series.
Yeah, and I don't remember who said it, but they were very accurate when they said that plays such a huge role because then even when LeBron's not around the ball, whoever's blocking the shots like that, in the back of your mind when you drive, you're like, where the hell is
Yeah,
this guy?
you are.
You as a football term, you're seeing ghosts. You think somebody's there when they're really not, or you're worried about them coming from behind, so it might affect your shot. So that takes a big effect on a game that a lot of people don't really think about.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I'm still on board with the Lakers to win the chip.
I am too. I mean, they've other than the game one loss at Portland, the game one loss against Houston. I mean, when the world basically gets set on fire after they lose a game because it's LeBron, because it's the Lakers. I mean, they are a team that is clearly good at making adjustments once they see something. Because at game one, after they got off to a pretty good start, they really folded in the fourth quarter. Or it was towards the end of the third into the fourth, the Lakers that was. LeBron talked about it after the game. He was like, look, we just weren't ready for their speed. He was like, we saw it on film a bunch. He was like, but it's something you can't simulate because, again, I mean, it's just something, what Houston's doing is something that no team has ever done. So he was like, it's just hard to get a feel for it unless you're actually playing. And I sent you that GIF of him sitting on the bench where he's just like shaking his head, like he looks like he's like, all right, I know what we got to do. He was like, we got to make the right adjustments. We'll be ready for game two, and they were ready for game 2 and 3.
And can somebody just publicly give Frank Vogel a little credit for what he's doing?
Nobody does.
Nobody ever does. I don't get it. So I want to take a second to give Frank Vogel a little credit because
he deserves it.
He is also in charge of making these in-game adjustments and after-game adjustments. And clearly they're working. So the Lakers haven't shown me anything to make me give up hope.
No, they're just a damn good team, and I mean they got the best player in the world, so that helps. And it also helps when there's not a team in the league with 4 Hall of Famers on it.
That also does help.
All right, let's go to the last series before we talk some NFL, Jay. Let's go Clippers Nuggets. All right, the Clippers went up 2-1 2 nights ago after Denver absolutely blew game 3. They were up 7 with like 6.5 to go in the fourth quarter, and then up 4, and Jeremy Grant starts taking a bunch of threes at the end of the game. Jamal Murray and Jokic both passed up shots. Jokic was really good for 3.5 quarters and then disappeared. And then, I just don't understand what it's going to take. It's going to take when the Clippers finally lose, which I don't think it's going to be until the next round because Denver just clearly, unless Jamal Murray plays out of his ass in game 4, 5, and 6, and same with Jokic. I just don't see it from them. But anytime the Clippers do anything, it's seriously like everyone acts like it's the most incredible thing that's ever happened. And we talked about it last week where they're just so easy to root against because the way they carry themselves, they act like they've won a bunch of chips and the shit that they do. Patrick Beverley, after game 3, said that Jokic flails all the time like Luka Doncic, and he goes, and Mike Malone was like, look, they shot 26 free throws and we shot 10. I don't know what game Patrick Beverley was watching or talking about. So it's just, I just haven't been impressed with the Clippers at all. This entire year, and included into the postseason. And that has no fault. I can't root for them. I just can't. I want to see them fail. I hate saying that, but they're just a team I don't respect. I just don't like, and I would love to see them lose this series.
Yeah, I don't think the Nuggets have enough firepower to beat them this round. Clippers are a flat-out better team. They have better players. The only way the Nuggets can really win is if Jokic and Murray both go off, and that's been inconsistent through this series where you saw game 2, they both played pretty damn well, and they pulled out the game.
Mm-hmm.
And
Jamal Murray goes like 4 for 22 in game 3 and was just really
Jokic
bad.
Had a great game, but
at 3.5 quarters of a game, and then at the end of the fourth, he just like disappeared.
I mean, the fucking passes that Jokic can make,
dude, he was just.
Unreal.
I mean, he sees the floor. He's the best passing big man of all time. Like, I don't care. I mean,
I think he's the best, not all time, but I think he's the best offensive big man in the game right now.
I agree with that. I do agree with that.
he just doesn't have the defensive game like an Embiid or an Anthony Davis. But what he does offensively is nuts. He took a rebound where he just went up, took it one-handed, never touched it with a second hand, pulled the rebound one-handed, turned around, and just launched a
And just the
dime
awareness
full
to
court.
know that Jeremy Grant was streaking down the
Yeah.
sideline because, like you said, he was looking at the ball, turns around and chucks it on a dime right over his shoulder for the layup. Which,
And we've talked about this before where, like, just playing pickup basketball, sometimes you make passes and it's just like you either have it or you don't. The awareness on how to get a ball where it needs to be, or the anticipation or leading somebody, and he fucking has it, man. Like there was that other pass down low where he was looking in the corner where the guy was wide open for a three, looks him off and throws a no-looker to the guy standing underneath the rim.
yeah, and he got Kawhi really good on that play because
Kawhi is arguably one of the best defenders in the game.
Yeah. I mean, he's a two-time Defensive Player of the Year, just made second-team All-Defense this year, which honestly was a joke. Not that he made it, but some of the guys on that team. Anyways, and that's the thing. I mean, you saw how much of a mismatch Jokic was for the Clippers.
They don't have an answer for him.
Because whether it was Zubats or Harrell or anybody. And then in the fourth quarter, he was just either he was gassed or he couldn't do anything because, I mean, they really just had him out of the three-point line and he really wasn't trying to back anybody down. And Jamal Murray passed up a bunch of shots and was giving them to Jeremy Grant. They didn't involve Gary Harris at all at the end of Game 3, and when he had a really good Game 2 and he had a bunch of big shots down the end that really would have won him the game because they got to take advantage when I think Kawhi only has 5 points in the past two fourth quarters. He really hasn't been that good in these past couple games. So maybe you're finally starting to see, hey, maybe he is actually hurt and that quad and him playing every other day isn't good for that leg. Maybe this is why they load managed him all year, even though, I mean, they had 5 months off. But I just was very disappointed in Denver's performance at the end because they see the blueprint to beat these Clippers. It's just because the Clippers get that mindset where they just think it's going to come to them. A majority of them just think that, okay, all right, we've got Kawhi, we've got Paul George, we got a bunch of these guys, Doc Rivers, our head coach, we've been hyped up all year as the best team in the league. It's just going to come to us and we don't really have to work that hard because you see lapses like that every single game from this team. And I was really disappointed in Denver's execution down the stretch.
Yeah, I don't know. I just props to Paul George for the game
he was good.
He played.
He was good in Game 3. He really was.
Good, but you can't expect that tonight. I'm not expecting Paul George to do that again. It's just the way he plays in the playoffs. So.
And I want to talk about Michael Porter Jr. a little bit because did you see his posterized dunk on Montrezl Harrell? Oh my God.
Yeah, I told you he's going to be the X factor and he's a problem, but he's been inconsistent too. Like he played a pretty damn good game.
He was good in Game 3. It's just he wasn't in. They can't play him at the end of games because he's so bad defensively.
Yeah.
I mean, after he had that dunk, I'm pretty sure Paul George went down and scored 8 straight points on him because he got beat on a drive, he got beat on a screen where he was just looking at the ball, he was ball watching, and Paul George is open for a 3. He gets screened by Zubats, and nobody helps because that position where Jeremy Grant is shooting those threes at the end of the game, that should be Michael Porter Jr. It's just he just lapses defensively all the time because he just doesn't buy into defense. He doesn't look like he cares that much about defense. He gets really excited to play offense, and when he's dunking on people and everything looks good, and then on the other end of the court, he just gets beat because they were attacking him all night when he was in there. So that's just a real progression in his game that if he develops, he's going to be a very good player. And he was the number 1 high school player in the country 2 or 3 years ago it was, and then he had the back injuries.
Top prospect coming out, and I said he was the steal of the draft if his back can heal up.
But those Jeremy Grant threes should have been Michael Porter Jr. threes.
Agreed.
So he just got to work on that, man. He just does, and that's why Mike Malone just gets so pissed off when he's out there. But he's like, look, he's so talented offensively. He's like, I gotta just leave him in sometimes.
It's an offensive game, yeah. You
might have to, but man,
take the good with the bad.
If you just get that attack defensively, that's going to be hard to play in playoff series for the rest of your career. So I actually think Denver ties the series up tonight. I think I originally picked Clippers in 6, which I'll still take, but I think Denver wins tonight because that just seems like the total Clipper thing to do. They win a game, so then they'll come out really lazy in the first quarter and probably get outscored by 15 in the first quarter and then try and play from behind all game, make it close in the fourth, and then Denver will pull away. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think the Clippers win tonight.
So then they're down. So the Nuggets are down 3-1 in 2 straight series.
Yep.
But probably not come back in this one.
No, I think the Clippers will kind of, like I said, they don't really have an answer for Jokic, but their main focus is that's fine. Just shut down Jamal Murray.
And it worked because they put all the length on Jamal Murray with PG and Kawhi, and it really was really a struggle for him.
That.
But I also think that Denver's got to do a better job of getting him open and just in running more action, not just strictly with Jokic too. They need to run some pick and roll to get a worse defender switched on to Jamal Murray, like you see a lot of teams do. They just don't do it because that's just not what Denver really runs offensively. But they can do that at the end of the games. So
yeah, we'll see. I'll take Clippers tonight.
All right, I'm taking the Nuggets, but I've been this second round has been really fun to watch. All these games have been pretty good and just very competitive, and it's just it's weird that it's in Labor Day basketball we were watching on Monday. So, all right, and speaking of weird, football is here tomorrow, and I can't tell you how. Like, it feels weird that it's here. It doesn't seem like it's real because you barely hear it being talked about. I don't see it much on Twitter or Facebook really don't even talk about it. I don't watch much ESPN and Fox Sports because I can't take those fucking idiots talking on TV. But, you just don't hear it anywhere.
Just a side that when we were all through growing up, elementary, middle school, it was everything. That's where we got all our sports news. That's where what all the radio we listened to, we would visit the website. And now like you said, rarely have ESPN on. Rarely. I can tell you the last time I watched SportsCenter, which is all I used to have on the background of my TV growing up. And it's just, I don't know what ESPN's doing. This is a complete rant, but yeah, I'm with you. I don't watch ESPN anymore for nothing unless a game is on that network.
It's all clickbait shit. It's not real analysis. It's not real opinions. It's who can say
get rid of their best guys.
Who can say the most asinine thing to get ratings. That's what TV sports commentaries come down to, and it's fucking stupid.
Yep, that's why I love podcasts. You find the guys that speak what you believe is the truth and just give their honest opinion, right or wrong, and give you
that's what
facts.
Jay and I do on here.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, you just you find podcasts that you listen, that you like, people that you just truly believe give real ideas and real opinions and you like their viewpoints way rather than watching SportsCenter anymore. It's just wild to me that how far it's come.
Yeah, it's honestly I hate it. I do. I really hate it.
Look at the fucking Monday Night Football debacle that's been going on. Yeah. The ESPN people should be lined up wanting that job. That is prime time, one of the best jobs you could ever have, and nobody wants it. They can't get anybody bigger name than Booger.
They tried to give Peyton Manning like $5,100 million, and he still said no.
That's just, I don't know. Something's got to give.
Yeah, it's just they're very corporate. You've heard it a lot from I've heard it a lot from a ton of people that have left. They have a lot of rules, and basically if you break one rule, you're basically out. And so, yeah, that I guess that's our rant on sports commentary on TV. It fucking sucks. So,
yeah, it really does.
To put it lightly. But Jay, tomorrow is football's back. It's the defending champions. I know that there's only going to be like 22% of their stadium there, of their fans. Maybe that is a big reason why it's not being as hyped as maybe it normally would, because we had no preseason. Are a lot of these teams going to look really rusty? They've on the only 11-on-11 games that they've had are in practice with your own guys, and you're really not going full go in practice because obviously you don't want to have any injuries, especially now with COVID and an injury. That doubles your risk of getting people off your team. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know I don't know what to expect on Thursday. I really don't. I don't know what to expect week one with a lot of these teams. If they look rusty, if they maybe take the first 2-3 weeks to get going, and then we really see some ramp up from teams. It's strange. It's baffling.
It is, and I believe you're going to see some rust for sure, but and quite a few missed tackles because I mean they've just been going with their own teams, and you don't take to the ground most likely in training camp, and you don't want to injure your own guys before the season starts. So there's going to be some missed tackles. There always is during the beginning of the year. Fingers crossed. The only thing that I could see happening that I, knock on wood, don't want to see is injuries. The first
absolutely,
week
which does scare you. It does.
You don't have preseason games. You haven't been able to ramp up to that speed for a full 4 quarters, and some people's bodies just aren't going to handle it right. So I'm hoping that it doesn't happen. I'm hoping teams took all sorts of precautions and did research and did try different things in training camp to dissuade an injury, but they happen, and I'm just fearful that it's going to happen quite a bit.
I mean, you already saw, I think Mike Evans just got hurt. Danielle Hunter got hurt from the Vikings, which is a big loss for them. He's at least going to be out the first 3 weeks. There were some other injuries.
Trey Burton on the Colts.
There you go. I mean, there's been a few other ones, and I do have a feeling that it's going to happen. Knock on wood that it doesn't, because I never pray for injuries for anybody, even if I do not like you as a player. Like, I hate Tom Brady with all my heart, but I don't want to see him get injured or anything.
Mariota was another one.
I honestly just want to see I want to see him stay healthy, because I want the Bucs to fail.
Yep, which I still believe they will.
But all right, I just want to let's run down some other stuff that have happened. So it was reported that the Bears are sticking with Trubisky as their starting quarterback so they're paying their backup quarterback, who they gave away a 4th-round pick for, $30 million to sit on the bench, while you have a guy in Trubisky who was fucking terrible. And that's being nice and saying that about last year. I just don't understand what the Bears are doing at that position. It makes absolutely no sense to me, Jay. Can you make any sense of it?
I can try and make just a little and hear me out.
All right,
I believe they chose Trubisky as the starter going into week 1 because they already planned to pull him early and go with Foles. But if you go with Trubisky, or if you go with Foles early, I mean, you've basically killed Trubisky's confidence, and you don't want to go back to him if Foles starts fucking up. Whereas if you start with Trubisky and then kind of hand the reins over to Foles and say, okay, we tried, here it is, it's your fucking time to shine, baby. Let's see what you can do. That might work out better. That's my own theory on what the hell's going on, and that's why I believe they went with Trubisky right out of the gate. But the Bears, market 4 or 5 win team. They're not good.
I think
their defense isn't what it was a couple of years ago.
I think you picked the Lions to win 1 game this year, but I think the Bears are the worst team in the NFC North. I'm not sure. The Lions are better, man. Come on.
I might have went nuts. I might have got a little overboard.
When we did our over-unders, you said the Lions would win 1 game.
All right, man. We don't. That's past.
Hey,
past history.
Man, I'm old takes exposed right now. Come on, Jay.
Which is fine. New information. Trubisky's a starter. I'm taking the Lions to win more games than the fucking Bears.
And I mean, honestly, now with Danielle Hunter missing some time, I think the Packers regress a little bit. The Bears with their quarterback situation. I mean, Detroit. I mean, depending on what they look like.
Peter King picked them to make the playoffs.
I did not actually, but
he has them as a wild card
if Stafford stays healthy, I think they can be a dangerous team, because they were 3-1 last year, and then they lost like 10 straight games after he broke his back and got fucked up on Monday night. Yeah, I know.
Fucked him out of the season.
Yeah, and then that basically ruined their entire season. But anyways, that's completely off topic. But I mean, you're just seeing a bunch of guys get paid right now. Deshaun Watson got paid. DeAndre Hopkins got paid. Who are some other? Jalen Ramsey just got paid. Tre'Davious White is getting all these players are just getting hella contracts right now, when a lot of these teams aren't going to make us as much money as they were the past couple of years. They're really taking care of their own guys, which, I mean, hey, props to them. Deshaun Watson's now the 2nd highest paid quarterback in the league behind Mahomes. So, I mean, we'll see. I don't know. A lot of these guys are getting their bags.
And continue to get them. We'll see what happens. Well, I'm still very interested to see what's going on with Dak.
Yeah, that's just an odd situation through and through. It really is. Something. I mean, I've said for like 2 years now. I really think they're just going to keep continuing to tag the guy, and he's going to play on a franchise tag, and then they're just going to end up trading him or letting him walk. I do.
Basically the same thing that happened to Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, and there's so many similarities in their careers. 4th-round picks, a lot of yards, not a lot of wins, shortcomings in the playoffs, things like that to that nature. So, I mean, it's hard not to compare those two guys. But I don't know.
It doesn't seem real, man, that tomorrow we're going to be sitting down
No,
watching
it seems
NFL
like when
football.
baseball came back, like baseball was more hyped to come back than the NFL.
It was.
And so was basketball. Both of the other 2 major sports in America, I'm not including hockey, that's the 4th major sport, but we never talk hockey because I couldn't even tell you 5 rules in hockey, but that's beside the point. I mean, all those other sports were, I think, more marketed that they were coming back. Even the UFC, I think, did a better job at saying, hey, we're coming back. And maybe that's just because there was 5 months of no activity at all with sports. So it was more of a, hey, we're going to be back. And I don't think the NFL is going to be short on ratings at TV at all. I really don't. But it's just, I honestly forgot that the season was starting tomorrow until we did our fantasy draft on Sunday this past weekend.
Oh, I agree, and it's wild to think about. So,
and I think it's also because the NBA players are the playoffs are going on right now in basketball, and they've been really good, and a lot of people have their eyes on that, and so that's got a lot of the topic on all these major sports networks, and they just seem not to have time to talk about football, really. Jay, I'm going to ask you this.
All right.
We never did a playoff preview or teams we think are going to the Super Bowl. I'm putting you on the spot right now.
Oh, shit. We did not, did we?
Give me your 2 Super Bowl teams and your winner right now. You will have the opportunity to change this. I just want it now.
I believe out of the AFC, it's just so hard not to pick the Chiefs. I mean, they return, I think, 20 starters.
Everybody, really, except for Damian Williams. And they've replaced him with a better running back, in my opinion, in Edwards-Helaire. So,
yeah, so it's hard not to pick the Chiefs. So I believe the Chiefs very well should make it back to the Super Bowl. The NFC is where it gets tough because Breeze is not getting any older. I think the Saints might have the best roster, but just time and time again,
their shortcomings in January have been well documented.
They just fall short. So I don't want to pick the Saints. You know what? I will go Chiefs Seahawks. Chiefs over the Seahawks.
That's exactly who I was going to say. Chiefs over the Seahawks.
I fucking love Russell Wilson.
I think Russell Wilson gets them back there. We both liked the acquisition of Jamal Adams. I think even though they lost Clowney, I think Adams is going to be a huge component in their defense.
They get their first-round pick and Collier back from a couple years ago.
Was it Darrell Taylor in the second round? The pass rusher from Tennessee?
Yes, and then they also drafted the linebacker out of Texas Tech.
Yeah, Jordan Brooks.
Who I liked a lot in that scheme. So not only that, I believe DK Metcalf takes another step forward and becomes a really good player in that offense. And the offensive line got a little better. Pete Carroll's been there, done that. He knows what it takes to win. I'm a believer that San Francisco takes a step backwards. So I will go Chiefs over the Seahawks.
I'll go Chiefs Seahawks too. And I mean, I think Kansas City has maybe one of the bigger advantages with having no offseason because, like you said, first of all, they just have the best quarterback in the league in Mahomes. And, I mean, they have a team loaded offensively. Defensively, they're good enough. They've got players in good positions where they can cover and they can get to the quarterback. They got pass rush and they got some corners and Matthew back there, safety, and a great head coach. So I'll go with the Chiefs. I just think they're probably the most complete team with their ability to score from any point on the field.
I just kind of to piggyback off of what you just said, with the basically no off season, to me, you kind of got to pick teams that, return a lot of
have
the same
been there
guys.
with each other for a while.
Yep.
Yeah.
The coach and the quarterback are on the same page.
Yep.
And there wasn't much to review or learn in the offseason.
Yeah. Like, I think you can see some, and rookies usually struggle, but quarterbacks, if Joe Burrow really doesn't have that much talent in Cincinnati, but I mean, he's coming into a brand new system. The Bucs, that's another reason why I don't think the Bucs are going to be that great, because you got Tom Brady. I know he's a master of preparation and everything, but he was in a system for 20 years, and he's coming into a brand new system. So that's another reason why I think they will struggle. You think about it, and it helps for the Colts, Jay, that Phillip Rivers has worked with Frank Reich before, so he's got a lot of familiarity with that system, but still he's coming into working with new receivers, offensive line, everything. So that's just another thing that also scares me a little bit, is a new quarterback, the most important position on the field. So, I mean, the Steelers, I think, are going to be pretty good with as long as Big Ben's healthy. So you're just going to see. We'll see this year, man. I think it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks for a lot of teams to look at full strength. I really do.
Yeah. Again, I just pray that a lot of injuries don't happen in the early weeks.
Since you say injury now, I thought of the other guy, Von Miller, for the Broncos.
Oh, yeah, that just happened.
Man, that really, I'm not a Broncos fan at all, but I've always been a fan of Von Miller. I liked him as soon as he came out of Texas A&M. That really kind of was a gut punch, because I really just like watching him play, and I had high hopes for Denver this year, but that's a major, major, major loss for them, because he was basically like the heart and soul of their defense and their best player.
He was their best player overall.
Yeah, from offensively and defensively. So that is a big loss for Denver. That sucks. It really does.
Chubb's going to have to step up.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it, Derwin James, but he got hurt a couple weeks ago, and Mike Williams for the Chargers. So, I mean, you're already starting to see some injuries for some major guys. So, yeah, again, I pray that it does not happen. So, we'll see. But I'm excited to watch I'm excited to watch it.
Tomorrow,
football. I mean, especially Sunday. I mean, you get the Sunday slate again. I think you got Bucks and Saints. That should be you see Brady's first game. You got, what are some other good ones on Sunday, Jay? I think you got.
I haven't even looked at the damn schedule for week 1. I know the Colts play the bum-ass Jaguars.
If you are interested.
You got Seattle at Atlanta.
There you go.
Green Bay at Minnesota.
You can, like we did last year, our listeners, the Unwanted Opinions podcast is doing a pick'em. So if you want to get in on that, go to the ESPN Pigskin Pick'em. You can rejoin the Unwanted Opinions group. If you are interested, message me or Jay. You can, if you got our number, text us, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, DM us, email us, unwantedopinionspodcast@gmail.com if you're interested in getting in on it. Last year we did $5 a week, winner take all. So if you're interested again in that, hit us up.
Oh, yeah, agreed. I was just on there honestly trying to figure out how to reset that group for this year. So
you just have to go into it through your profile, and if you were in it last year, just hit rejoin. That's all you got to do, because it's already set up, because I'm the only one currently in it.
Nope, you and me now.
Oh, okay, well then you just joined it, but everybody rejoin that if you're interested in doing it.
All right,
and invite people to it. So
there you go.
Yeah. All right, but Jay, you want to get out of here on that, man?
I do. Yeah. Actually.
As always, subscribe to the Unwanted Opinions podcast wherever you get us: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. You can check us out on YouTube. I just told you where you can get in touch with us on all social media platforms. We're there. Check us out everywhere. Keep continuing to listen. We thank all you guys for sticking with us, especially when there was no sports. But now everything's back, so Jay and I are back full force.
Full force. I just watched that movie.
It is a good one. All right, let's get the fuck out of here, man.
Fuck out of the woods. All right. Until next time.
Until next time.